The one thing every woman dreads is losing her freedom to choose. Carl Jung. Imagine a young girl whose laughter once filled the home, now hesitates to speak her mind, her spirit dimmed by the very hands meant to nurture it. When a mother's gaze drifts away in indifference, or a father's praise is doled out only for perfect grades, a subtle message takes root. My feelings and needs are negotiable, contingent on someone else's approval. Over time, this child learns to silence her own voice, trading authenticity for survival. She internalizes a belief that love must be earned, not freely given. A lesson that shadowed her into adulthood, leaving her stuck in patterns of people-pleasing and indecision. In families where emotional attunement is scarce, children often become caretakers of their parents' unmet needs. A girl may cradle her mother's sorrow as if it were her own, smoothing away tears she did not cause, hoping to restore peace. Yet in doing so, she sacrifices her own burgeoning selfhood. This role reversal, invisible yet heavy, teaches her that her worth lies in tending to others rather than exploring her own desires. Carrying this habit forward, she may struggle to assert boundaries, feeling guilty whenever she honors her own needs. Sometimes the caregiver's own wounds, anxiety, perfectionism, or emotional volatility spill into daily life like a slow leak. A daughter absorbing these tensions might grow hyper-vigilant, scanning the room for signs of conflict or withdrawing into safety. She learns to adapt her emotions to match the family climate, a skill that serves her in childhood, but stunts growth when it becomes lifelong. Without a steady model of self-regulation, she may find herself overwhelmed by simple stresses, reverting to childish fears or impulsive reactions she longed to outgrow. Healing begins when we recognize these patterns as legacies, not personal failures. By naming the moments when we silenced our voices to calm someone else's storm, we reclaim permission to feel fully and speak bravely. We practice small acts of self-care, saying no to extra tasks, voicing a preference at dinner, resting when our bodies demand it, and each choice strengthens a muscle long left dormant. We seek relationships where empathy flows both ways, where needs are balanced and vulnerabilities honored. Bit by bit, the girl who once traded her dreams for peace rediscovers her own voice, learning that genuine connection grows not from silent sacrifice, but from the courage to be seen and heard just as she is. When a young woman grows up believing that affection and approval are conditional, her sense of self becomes a fragile construct built on the applause of others. In homes where praise is doled out only for perfect grades, flawless behavior, or unwavering compliance, emotional immaturity takes root in the soil of performance. She learns early that her feelings must be hidden behind a mask of acceptability. Anger, tucked away so as not to upset the household balance, sadness tucked even deeper so as not to burden those around her. Over time, this habitual self-censorship erodes her ability to recognize and express genuine emotion, leaving her dependent on external cues to know whether she exists in anyone's favor. Living with a parent or partner who centers their world on their own needs teaches another lesson, that self-worth is measured by how well one administers care. She may find herself craving praise like a plant craves sunlight, wilting at the slightest criticism and scrambling to restore harmony by becoming the perpetual peacemaker. Boundaries blur as she anticipates others' desires, her own needs relegated to an afterthought. In social settings, this woman might nod agreement even when her instincts urge dissent, fearful that an exposed opinion could trigger rejection. The paradox here is profound. The more she sacrifices herself to win approval, the more insecure she feels, because her approval derives not from who she is, but from how flawlessly she plays the role assigned to her. Moments of rebellion punctuate this pattern, an unexpected burst of defiance or sharply worded retort that surprise both her and everyone around her. These eruptions, however, are often fleeting. Soon guilt follows the adrenaline of standing up for herself, and she retreats back into the safety of compliance, believing that peace is worth the price of her own voice. This emotional pendulum swing between dependence and defiance, nurtured by a world that equates love with performance, traps her in a cycle that children's brains never fully mature out of on their own. Breaking free begins with recognizing that the need for constant validation is not an immutable flaw, but a learned survival skill. We start by practicing small acts of authenticity, speaking truth when it feels risky, honoring the sting of disappointment without quickly apologizing, and letting ourselves experience disapproval without despair. By choosing to feel our own emotions in full color, anger, sadness, joy, we rebuild an internal barometer that no longer relies on outside approval. With every honest conversation and every boundary firmly drawn, we reclaim the very parts of ourselves that were once traded for acceptance, moving slowly from the performance stage into the real, unscripted arena of genuine adulthood. Beneath the surface of our everyday thoughts lies a hidden tapestry of stories and symbols that shape how we see ourselves and the world, a realm where the image of the eternal child often flickers like a glowing ember in our psyche. When this inner child holds too much sway, a woman may feel perpetually tethered to innocence and playfulness while struggling to embrace responsibility and depth. She may find herself enchanted by novelty, chasing fresh experiences, romances, or creative projects with the fervor of a child discovering a new playground, but then recoiling in fear when the stakes rise or commitment beckons. That delightful spark of curiosity, when left unchecked, can become a restless longing for escape rather than a catalyst for growth. In everyday life, this dynamic plays out when a woman balks at long-term goals, preferring the immediacy of fun over the slower burn of progress. She might drift from job to job, hobby to hobby, always enchanted by the next bright thing, yet never settling enough to cultivate lasting mastery or deeper meaning. In relationships, she may rush into passionate beginnings, reveling in the intoxicating thrill of new affection, only to pull away when the deeper work of vulnerability and mutual responsibility arises. The energy that once fueled boundless imagination now becomes a barrier to mature intimacy and enduring achievement, as she fears that growing up will mean the loss of her most treasured gifts. Yet the gifts of this archetypal child, creativity, openness to wonder, and a refusal to be constrained by convention, are not the enemy of maturity. They are its secret allies when honored with balance. Recognizing that the urge to play and the call to responsibility can coexist allows a woman to draw on her creativity to solve adult challenges and to infuse her commitments with joy. She learns to anchor her boundless curiosity and purpose, transforming restless energy into visionary projects that sustain both her youthful spirit and her evolving self. Rediscovering balance begins when she pauses to listen to that inner child, with compassion rather than judgment. acknowledging the yearning for joy even as she chooses tasks that require concentration and follow-through. By gently guiding playfulness toward meaningful goals, turning sketchy daydreams into concrete designs, channeling spontaneous ideas into structured plans, she honors both sides of herself. With time, the eternal child's wonder becomes a source of resilience rather than distraction, reminding her that true adulthood is not a relinquishment of magic, but the art of weaving it into every facet of life. In doing so, she steps into a richer, more integrated adulthood, one where responsibility and imagination dance together, rather than pulling her in opposite directions. Social currents whisper in our ears from the moment we learn to look in the mirror, telling us that youth is the prize and that maturity is something to be postponed, or worse, denied. When billboards, social media feeds, and blockbuster films glorify wrinkle-free skin, boundless energy, and carefree spontaneity, it's easy to slip into the belief that growing up will strip away our sparkle. A woman who feels pressured to maintain a perpetual youthful facade may devote more time and resources to masking the natural shifts of her body and mind than to cultivating inner strength and wisdom. In such an environment, emotional maturity can seem like an unwelcome burden rather than a vital milestone. Yet real growth often begins in the quiet moments when we choose depth over image. It happens when we practice saying no to invitations that drain us, even if our instinct is to keep every door open. When we pause to notice the tightness in our chest rather than rush past discomfort. When we give ourselves permission to sit with difficult feelings without hunting for an immediate distraction. These small acts, setting a boundary with a demanding friend, allowing ourselves to cry in private, declining a social obligation to get rest, teach us that our needs matter, that our limits deserve respect. Over time, each choice rewires our nervous system, strengthening the capacity to tolerate discomfort, express emotions honestly, and respond to challenges with curiosity instead of panic. Building relationships that honor mutual give and take is another vital step. When we seek friendships and partnerships where vulnerability is met with empathy instead of judgment, we create corrective emotional experiences that rewrite old survival scripts. In these safe spaces, we learn that we can speak our truth without fear of abandonment, that requests for support can be met with generosity instead of resentment. Coupled with practices like journaling to track emotional triggers, mindfulness, exercises to anchor us in the present, or group workshops where shared stories foster solidarity, we gradually replace isolation with connection and confusion with clarity. True integration comes when we align our inner values with purposeful action, transforming societal pressures into catalysts for self-discovery. We might channel the energy once spent on cosmetic perfection into learning a new skill, volunteering for causes that light us up, or mentoring other women on their own growth journeys. By weaving together self-care rituals, boundary-setting practices, and nourishing relationships, we reshape our cultural inheritance. Maturity ceases to be a path we walk alone or a gift reserved for a lucky few. Instead, it becomes a landscape we tend deliberately, where each step toward authenticity plants the seeds for a life of grounded freedom and empowered choice.